At first, she tried to set a good example by using good manners and eating with a spoon, but when she could see that he couldn't really hold the spoon with those giant paws, she went more his way. And you could tell how much he appreciated that she did that.
And the song is kind of silly and sweet because it's for kids, but there's something really beautiful about that moment in the movie, how there's something in him that I didn't see. I can't believe I didn't see this before. But she gentled him without even probably realizing it. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Fascinating Womanhood channel, where we talk about everything that has to do with developing femininity and building strong, long-lasting, loving relationships. I am Sherry Lynn, and I'm here with my mom, Dixie Andel and Forsyth. Hi.
Hi.
So welcome back to our Disney princess series that we're doing. It kind of feels funny even saying that. For those of you who haven't already watched our first video, we are doing a series on Disney princesses. We're going through all of the Disney princess movies, at least most of them, and we're looking for fascinating womanhood principles in each movie. And today we're doing Beauty and the Beast.
This one has some really good ones.
Beauty and the Beast is great. You know, I got to say, if you haven't watched the first video that we did, just a small introduction. We're doing this because we don't really have a ton of really great visual examples for fascinating womanhood principles. We, of course, have our books. Hopefully you've read our books, but a lot of the ladies ask us how they can apply these things to their life. And since we don't have actresses, we don't have the ability to show you how to do that yet. We are using movies, and we chose Disney because it's fun. They aren't real people. It's something you can relate to. Hopefully you've seen it or familiar with the characters.
You're not tempted to get kind of confused by that actress's private life and think, this actress, I happen to think that she's not very moral or whatever.
Yeah.
These Disney princesses have no private life. So that's
and we know they're not real, but there's a lot of real life, I got to say, that is mimicked in these movies. They're done well. They're done by Disney. And you see, when you watch them and you look for this, I swear, any of you out there that have to do this, if you have small kids like me, you watch it and you see these things, and it's actually quite helpful to recognize the principles in these movies. So
even if you don't have small children, chances are when you were little, you saw some of them.
That's true. And you look at them probably completely differently today than you did when you were a child. I know I did. So we're going to go through all of the successfully shown fascinating womanhood principles in the movie Beauty and the Beast. Now, this is the animated movie from the 90s. Okay. So in this movie, the successful principles shown are boundaries, femininity, acceptance, character, and understanding men. Now, we're not going to go through the bad moments because we want to keep the videos positive, but we will touch on a few what we're calling cringe moments, where there were just maybe either something was just not shown very well, or just kind of like I said, it makes you cringe.
Yeah. Okay. Because there was one main one with Belle that made me cringe, but for the most part, she was really, really good.
So going into the first one, it's boundaries.
Belle, I thought, had pretty good boundaries. When she was in the castle with the beast, she didn't want, he commanded her to come to dinner, and he had just kidnapped her. She didn't feel like having dinner with him. And so she stayed in her room.
She's not coming.
What? And she understood boundaries better than he did.
I think the whole movie, she is the boundary queen. Like I've watched all of these movies now because we're doing this, and her by far, she has the best boundaries. Now, part of that has to do with some of the little things that we're going to get into about her in a minute. But I think even with Gaston,
I was thinking,
she throws him out of her house. Like no. And she continuously, politely tells men no.
She tells him, he asked her to marry him, and she says no, but she doesn't laugh in his face or anything. She just says no. And
I don't deserve you.
I just don't deserve you.
The scene when the beast, we're going into the beast now because we were talking about Gaston, when he says, you will join me for dinner, and she says no, and he says, you can't stay in there forever, and she says,
you can't stay in there forever.
Yes, I can.
Fine.
That was a really good, she put up some strong boundaries. Boundaries are tough. A lot of women struggle understanding what a healthy boundary looks like, and that was very healthy. She was a prisoner in his home. And
she was a prisoner. What did she have dinner with him? For all she knew, he was going to kill her or eat her for dinner. She didn't have any idea.
True.
He was a beast. He was a beast after all.
But what's interesting about boundaries is that she didn't really respect his boundaries.
The castle is your home now, so you can go anywhere you like, except the West Wing.
What's in the West?
It's forbidden.
Mm-hmm. By going into the parts of the castle that he said were forbidden.
That's true. She didn't.
But she has very strong personal boundaries. She just doesn't respect others. And I think that's something that we hear a lot from women, is like, we'll get questions about, my marriage, he's doing this or doing that. I don't understand. And then we say to them like, well, this is a boundary thing. And they kind of like are shocked that it's a boundary thing. Boundaries get crossed all the time. And there's so many different types of boundaries. I think this movie, because it's animated, it's more about physical boundaries, which is fine, but it's demonstrated well in how she handles them. But then she crosses his boundaries and boy, does he blow up at her.
I warned you never to come here.
I didn't mean any harm.
Do you realize what you could have done?
Hey, stop!
Get out!
No!
Get out!
He's very careful about that boundary.
Yeah. Okay. So the next one is femininity.
Well, Belle is very feminine. She's the main female character. There's those ditzy other blondes that swoon every time they see Gaston, but they don't really have much in the way of speaking parts. But Belle is the main female character in the whole thing, and she's always very feminine. I love how Disney makes their female characters move. Their mannerisms are so feminine, the way they walk, the way they move their hands. They're always very feminine. It's not just that it was different period of time and everyone wore dresses. It's the way they moved, the way she treated her father. And that was also character.
One of the things that I've noticed about every single Disney princess, and Belle specifically, was surprising to me, is that they always show all the princesses, no matter what their personality, being very kind to animals and gentle with animals. And all of the scenes with Belle with animals are there's a really, really lovely message in how she's treating the animals. And she's kind of hard-headed and a little sassy and stubborn. But when she's around an animal, there's several scenes, even the cushion in the palace that's a dog, but it's like turned into a cushion.
Yeah.
Even that she's kind to and hugs.
And the horse. Yeah.
Yeah, the horse. She's so kind to Philippe and talks to him so gently. And the sheep in the very beginning, when she's reading and they're eating her page out of her book and she's just cuddling with them. It's like they're her friends in the movie. And I think there's something really lovely and feminine about that. It changes her when she's around an animal. The birds in the scene in the snow and how she gets Beast to not only hold them, but to feed them. That's such an amazing scene of femininity and feminine influence, the feminine influence that she has on the Beast in those scenes with the birds outside. And he's running around and chasing her. And it turns into like this kind of cute moment. It all started with those birds. And I think I love that message and how Disney showed that. I'm not saying that men can't be gentle with animals, but there's something really lovely and endearing about a woman that is kind and caring of animals. It's almost like, in a way, like children, and it becomes very nurturing and it's attractive. And I just think it's something to notice and to point out. There's also a scene with femininity that I love when she asks, there's a song going on, so you kind of have to imagine that she's asking, but she's asking him, the Beast, to read to her by the fire, and they sit together with a book and they're reading together, and again, feminine influence with that femininity that she shows to sit by me and read a book with me. She gentled him without even probably realizing it. There's also a scene where they're having dinner. There's violinists playing and they're across from each other. So they're very far apart having dinner. And she just gets up and pulls them to dance. And I think that one is also inspiring masculinity, but we put it under femininity because I just think her joy right there to dance and she's wearing that beautiful dress and she gets up and she just, come on, let's dance. I mean, she doesn't say anything. She just pulls at him. And I thought that was a really lovely moment that she looked very gentle and happy in that moment.
Yeah, and she gets away with it because you can tell he's a little uncomfortable and shy. So he appreciate her doing that because he's awkward. He hasn't been around women really much at all.
Well, he just doesn't know how to be a gentleman and he's unsure of himself and he's not confident. And she basically builds his confidence with these tiny little things that she, influences him to do. She doesn't even ask him to do these things. She just influences him, which is really powerful. And it's hard to show that. It's hard to see that. You don't see that in a lot of Disney movies. Okay, the next one is acceptance. And I think this one is just so powerful in this movie.
When I was unclear when I first saw it, I thought they were eating oatmeal. I don't know what it was.
I don't know what it is. Yeah, that's a good point. It could be, I don't know what it was.
Anyway, they're eating and something that requires a spoon. And she takes a little feminine bite and he just kind of gobbles it because he's a beast. It's not that he's been in this enchanted state for a while. They don't really tell you how long, for a while. And so he just starts gobbling like an animal would. And she looks surprised. But he has paws and not really hands, so he can't really lift a spoon and do it as carefully and gentlemanly as she does. And so she takes the bowl and starts eating, not gobbling like he did, but starts eating out of it to make him feel more comfortable.
Yeah, she accepted that he can't. He physically can't do what her expectations of a man are here, and he's here, and she lets it go. I thought that was a beautiful scene, and it's hard to see acceptance. You talk about accepting someone, and it's like, well, what does that look like? Especially for someone that hasn't experienced it, doesn't understand it. And that scene, if you want to understand acceptance, that's a really great one.
If you've ever known anyone in your life, and some people have not, but if you've ever known anyone in your life that accepts you and doesn't try to change you every time you turn around, but just sort of seems to like you are, with all your imperfections and everything, that's kind of what we're going for here in accepting people, is to not try to change them. And at first she tried to set a good example by using good manners and eating with a spoon, but when she could see that he couldn't really hold the spoon with those giant paws, she went more his way. And you could tell how much he appreciated that she did that.
You know, you have the feminists of today that are like, well, everything should be fair and everything should be equal. Why should I have to change? He should change. Well, that's a beautiful moment where it's so small but big in a way, because she let go. And it was a beautiful moment in their relationship, and it kind of pivots them. And I think it's the whole point here is that accepting someone is the most selfless thing you can do. And in that movie, my goodness, like, she's with a beast. It's kind of crazy. It's fantastic that she would be with a beast, but that she accepts this guy and sees that he's a man under there. There's another scene with acceptance where, and this proves that she accepted him from the beginning, is when she hasn't even seen what he looks like yet. She's heard his voice. She can kind of faintly see him in the dark. She's in this dark room with him. And then she says, come into the light.
Come into the light.
He steps in the light and she sees what he looks like. And instead of being afraid, she does do a little gasp, I believe, but instead of being afraid or telling him, oh my, what are you? Or something, you can imagine all the horrible things that she could have said to make him feel horrible. She literally does not say anything when she sees that he's a beast. And she just says, okay, you have my word.
You have my word.
Done.
She just wanted to see him. So I thought that was a really great scene, because she just was polite enough to not hurt his feelings, even though she was about to be his prisoner. Mm-hmm. He just took her dad prisoner. Yeah. It's kind of a moment where, if you really realize, if you put yourself in her shoes, it was kind of amazing that she responded in that way. The last one for acceptance is the song where they're outside with the birds, as we were talking about earlier, and the words in the song. There's something in him that I simply didn't see.
But there's something in him that I simply didn't see.
And she's kind of singing in the song about, how is it that I didn't see this in him before? All these wonderful things. And part of this is also just treasure hunting, which we didn't really put, but because it's just really this one scene. But I love that this is a visual example of treasure hunting and acceptance. She accepts who he is. She's sort of starting to have feelings for him because she's looking for all of the good in him. And the song is kind of silly and sweet because it's for kids, but there's something really beautiful about that moment in the movie, how there's something in him that I didn't see. I can't believe I didn't see this before.
But he also, when she leaves and he saves her from the wolves, I think it's the first time he saves her, she starts to see him just a little bit different. And right. He's attracted, but he kind of sees her a little different too.
You're welcome.
They have that kind of connection when he saves her, and she realizes he isn't just this awful beast. It helps her to start looking more for that good in him, which of course is there. But you know what's interesting, until she shows up and you don't have any idea how long he's been under that spell in that castle. When like the dad comes, he hasn't learned any lessons. He just roars at the dad, you're my prisoner, you've trespassed. Mm-hmm. And he was really mean. He hadn't learned any of these lessons that in the beginning got him enchanted in the first place. It took Belle to gentle him and give him motivation to try.
Right. And it's such a exaggerated story. You know, we've talked about, you guys talked about this in a recent video about bad boys, about how, he's the beast was like a bad boy. He was an example of kind of a bum. She was dealing with a kind of a bad man, but really deep down, he kind of changed, that's the fantasy part. It's like, you can't really change a guy like that, but there's something really lovely about some of these moments in the movie where she has influence over him. And I know it's kind of unrealistic to change somebody, and I don't think she meant to change him.
She didn't know he was anything but a beast. He was motivated to change himself, but Gaston, she never had any influence on him. He was just a bad guy right to the end. He was just bad, and he was really a bad boy. As the audience, you're meant to think he's gross, and you do.
Okay, so the next one is character. She has a lot of character, and she has a lot of self-esteem. I think that's what I really love about Belle as a Disney princess, is her self-esteem and confidence in herself. And she's not a doormat. There's no doormat about Belle whatsoever. She's not going to let anybody walk all over her. And I think that that's great. That falls under her character.
Don't talk about my father that way.
Yeah, don't talk about her father that way.
My father is not crazy. He's a genius.
Her forgiveness and confidence just overall throughout the whole movie, forgiving people constantly, is really, really, really well done.
I didn't escape, Papa. He let me go.
That horrible beast.
But he's different now, Papa. He's changed somehow.
You touched on this earlier, taking her father's place in the castle.
That was a supreme sacrifice because, like I said, she didn't know whether the beast was going to eat her. He was going to kill her. I mean, she had no idea. She saved her father and sacrificed herself.
Take me instead.
You.
And she was willing to do that, even though she had no idea that it wouldn't mean just the end of her life.
I also love her overall self-restraint throughout the movie.
Well, you should learn to control your temper.
You can tell there's many moments where she wants to lash out and she is careful in her responses.
Now hold still. This might sting a little.
I think that's really kind of amazing. Like there's some Disney princess movies where the princesses either burst into tears and just give up or just lash out, especially in the more modern ones. But she doesn't. She bites her tongue. She had good character overall. I mean, even though, Gaston was kind of a bum to her, she handled him pretty well. She handled the situations with him pretty well.
Yeah.
Hello, Belle.
Bonjour, Gaston. Gaston, may I have my book, please? And
how she is overall in the castle. She's really kind to the enchanted staff, and she's like really kind to Chip, and she's overall a really, really kind and selfless person when she's in the castle. Okay, the last one is understanding men.
Well, that was a big one. That was a really big one. But just like we already mentioned at the table with them eating, she understood that he was doing the best that he could. Yeah. She was compassionate to him. She didn't know the spell he was under till it was this huge surprise, but she was compassionate and she began to understand the way he was. And I think she sees that for what it is. I mean, as she understands him, she's more attracted to him.
She overall understands men a lot in the movie. She even understands Gaston enough to know that he's kind of a rat.
If what?
If you marry me.
What?
One little word, Belle, that's all it takes.
Never.
Have it your way.
And she doesn't allow him into her life because she understands who he is.
She also knows he's dangerous enough. She doesn't deliberately anger him. It's like she says, I'm not good enough for you. She does.
Except at the end, she does anger him at the end. The moment she gets angry with him is when he basically is out for blood.
He's actually really criminal. I mean, he's a criminal, and
he belongs in jail.
He does, and even in some of his songs, he's going to make her rub his feet after he marries her. He wanted status. He wanted her because she was the prettiest girl in town.
But part of understanding men is also understanding their weaknesses, and she understands his bad side better than anybody else. All the other girls are like, "You're crazy. He's the best. He's the biggest catch in town," but she understands. It's not even just an intuition. She fully knows what he's capable of, and she wants nothing to do with it.
It's a little bit off, but in Fascinating Womanhood, we talk about how to spot a rat. Disney makes it real easy to spot that.
Yeah.
But there's guys who are essentially kind of like that, but they just may be so obvious. And girls like those three blondes, they get fooled by it. The audience isn't meant to be fooled by it, but people really are fooled by those types.
People really are fooled by it. It's kind of amazing how accurate that character is to a lot of rats.
It's over, beast. Belle is mine.
Yeah,
it's very accurate.
Not as obvious. A lot of them are a little more subtle.
Well, when he's like checking his teeth in the mirror, that's so obvious.
It's so
you would probably see that in real life. But another way that
We'll have 6 or 7.
Dogs?
No, Belle. Strapping boys like me.
Oh, he's so gross.
Disney did a good job of kind of making him look really handsome and strong and giving him this amazing masculine voice. And she sees through all of it.
Yeah.
She sees through all of it. Another scene that I loved, and I never noticed it until I watched it the 200th time and was doing this project, is the scene where Belle and the Beast are dancing and he looks really uncomfortable. She gets him on the dance floor. She's got this beautiful ball gown on. She puts her hand on his shoulder and she grabs his paw and puts it around her waist really tight and smiles at him. And that scene was just so, I can't believe I never noticed it. She was inspiring him, inspiring his masculinity, inspiring his confidence. She understood what he needed from her intuitively. I don't know how she knew, but come on, let's dance is basically what she was saying to him without saying a word. And then right after she puts his paw around her waist, he just soars her through the dance floor. And he just, And I know it's just an animated film, but like that
Okay,
moment gave me goosebumps.
But that's a perfect example of she knew what he needed. Whereas, see, somebody like Bob, or I don't know whether your husband is that way or not. Bob would not need me to do that because he was an experienced dancer. So it isn't like all women should take the lead in that. He was underconfident. He was not sure of himself, and she helped him by doing that. And that was personal for him, not for. She wouldn't have done that with Gaston. I mean, he would have.
Well, he wouldn't have needed that. And he would have been a bum. The Beast was underconfident. She understood that about him, and she saw potential in him. She saw good in him. And therefore her actions reflected that. And you see it in that scene. And it's just a beautiful scene. It gave me goosebumps when I watched it. And I realized like, oh, whoever animated that, it's very detailed.
Yeah.
And it's obviously on purpose. I imagine that it's a man because it's just like, you understand.
They had to talk about what to have the characters do every moment, every move that they did because they had to be animated. So
yeah, that moment is just lovely. And then the last one for understanding men is how Belle is with her father.
I'll never get this boneheaded contraption to work.
Yes, you will. And you'll win first prize at the fair tomorrow. And become a world-famous inventor.
You really believe that?
The way she is with her father is just such an amazing message for daughters. How she believes in him. The very, very first interaction, the scene that they have where he's talking about his invention and he feels a little bit like he's a failure, and she just builds him up and says that she believes in him, and everybody makes fun of him.
Yeah, he's this kind of silly guy, and she always believes in him.
Yeah, and I never noticed that either until I was doing this project and trying to find things, and it was easy. It was like, oh my gosh, look at how she is with her father. She's so respectful of him, and she believes in him, and she builds him up, and says that he can accomplish his dreams. And then, of course, the kind of fantasy part of this is that suddenly his invention starts working right after she builds him up. But it's a sweet little message of a sliver of what that might look like in real life, is like building him up. And then, of course, he ends up being a little bit more successful with the project that he's working on.
And they just happen to include in there later on the invention ends up helping them be rescued. So it wasn't a design to do, but it is useful in helping them escape a dangerous situation. It's not really directly related to what we're talking about, but the Beast is appealing to him because he's very dangerous, but when he's under control, it's very appealing. A man who can be dangerous, but it's under control. It's a very attractive quality for women. Yeah. Sometimes women are attracted to dangerous guys like Gaston, who actually just is dangerous. It isn't under control.
Right. Okay, so that's all of the Fascinating Womanhood principles in that movie. Now we have a couple of little cringe moments because that's what we do at the end of all these Disney ones. We don't want to like pick on the princesses in a negative way, but there are some little moments where we cringe in the movie. It's for learning. This is all about learning. Getting Fascinating Womanhood. So what are your cringy moments?
Well, the main one was in the beginning when she's singing that song, she doesn't seem to really accept the people in the town. Like,
yes,
got to be more than this. And these are really nice people that she's passing in the street that are coming in the library that's loaning her the book. And I think she's not accepting those people and for who they are. It's like, there's got to be more to my life than this.
Every morning just the same, since the morning that we came to this poor provincial town.
Good morning, Belle.
That whole song makes me roll my eyes. I'm sorry. I know there's a lot of people that love it. And I love Beauty and the Beast. I love the movie, but like that song just makes me roll my eyes. I think they're trying to appeal to little girls that want to get out and do more. And I think that's great. The lack of appreciation and gratitude that she has in the beginning is just so silly.
It kind of doesn't work with the rest of her character.
It doesn't even really make sense that she would be so unhappy when she's such a positive, wonderful person outside of that moment.
And she lives in a nice town. The townspeople, other than Gaston, are really, really sweet people. So they're just
and she has a lot to be grateful for. She just doesn't have I think it's great that she has dreams. And maybe they were trying to have this exaggerated way of showing that, oh, look at Belle. She wants to accomplish all these things and she has all these dreams. That's great. But just the kind of tone that she sets in that song and in that scene is like, these people are below me and beneath me.
Yeah,
and that's
not like that. And I'm
not positive.
But yeah, did you have another one? That was mine.
I did. I just don't like that scene in the very end with her and Gaston when he says, let's go get this beast. And he's trying to show to her that, I know he's a bum, but he's trying to show to her that the town isn't safe if there's a beast, which, to be honest, you can kind of understand where he's coming from. He doesn't really know. The beast just basically kidnapped her and her dad. He's probably thinking, we need to get this guy. He's dangerous. And she says,
he's no monster, Gaston. You are.
I know that he's a bad guy. I get it. I know he's a bum. But when she called him a monster in front of the whole town, everyone heard it. She called him a monster. It was just such a it was just such a bad decision to call him that, because not only did it rage him, he just went into a rage. He locked her in her house. She should have known better than to do that.
Yeah.
She should have known better than to call him a monster in front of everyone. And that was just not.
Which ended up being more dangerous than.
And then it ended up being even worse. So I just think like that scene kind of drives me nuts because it was unnecessary of her to do that. It was unnecessary of her to challenge him in that way. She should have just let it go.
I agree. Because she handled him so much better when he asked her to marry him and she turned him down. I mean, she handled that so much better. I thought it was really great that they showed, unlike some of the other movies, that the love that they developed for each other was not just physical. And it developed over time as they got to know each other. And you can see their relationship developing, because in the beginning he was mad at her and she was afraid of him, and so you can see how they got to know each other and learn to love each other, instead of this, you meet one day, you fall in love, and then you get married because they're both really handsome. So,
we always say in Fascinating Womanhood there are 4 levels of your relationship that you have to meet before you potentially are ready to take the next step. And in that movie, in a way, in an animated way, they kind of show those 4 levels, not the spiritual part. And you can watch that video. We did a video on the 4 levels, but I think you bring up a good point. It's a developed romance, and you don't see that.
and you can see why. You can see how, and you can see why.
Yeah.
They show little clips of how they start looking at each other differently, and she starts appreciating him.
The last one that I had that I just wanted to like throw in for just 2 cents. I think that Belle is the most intelligent of all the princesses, or at least they make her appear that way. And that's one of the things I love most about her. Some of the Disney princesses kind of come across as a little bit naive, which they are. A lot of them are young.
Like Snow White.
A lot of them are just young, but they kind of come across as like not the greatest head on their shoulders. And then we mentioned confidence several times. And I think Belle is not only a really great example of really intelligent princess, but she is very intuitive. And, you can tell she has a lot of dreams and she's wanting to put those things into action. I think that's what I love the most about her. She's a little bit deeper than some of the other princesses.
Yeah. And maybe just that with some of the others, like Sleeping Beauty and Snow White, they don't really develop their character that much. They don't.
Well, they're like literally teenagers, so that's a little bit hard. But you don't have to portray a teenager as ditzy. And I think sometimes Disney went that direction with some of their princesses as ditzy. And Belle never really came across as ditzy at all. She always came across as intelligent, pretty good head on her shoulders. Obviously not perfect, but she had a lot more stability in who she was. And I think that's one of my favorite things.
She loved to read, and
she just had a lot of ambitions, and she appreciated adventure, life, knowing more people, getting to know more things. Like, I think that's great. So thank you so much. I hope that you enjoyed it. And if you have any other scenes that you can think of where you see Fascinating Womanhood principles, I'm sure we missed so many, drop them down below. We would love to hear from you. Hope you thought this was as fun as we did. We're having fun doing this for sure.
I'm looking forward to some more.
Yeah, we're going to do some more, and drop down below which movies you'd like to see next, but we will cover as many as we can. All of our books, if you want to learn more about Fascinating Womanhood principles, maybe you don't know what we're talking about and you want to learn more, they're all attached to this video, as well as all the places we are active on social media. You should definitely join our Facebook group and follow us on Instagram. And we're here every week, so don't forget to hit subscribe. We will have a whole series on this, so keep with us, and we'll see you next time. Bye.